Welcome to the Brad Lang Show. I am Brad Lang. Last week, we witnessed the worst mass shooting in our nation's history. Our hearts go out to those affected by the shooting in Las Vegas. And as a nation, we mourn the over 50 dead and we pray for the 500 plus who are injured. Now, Stephen Paddock took his own life before he was able to be taken into custody, and his true motivation for committing such a heinous act may never be understood. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that one side cares more about those that died and their families than the other. And you're out of your mind if you think anyone takes this lightly. Now, the tweets and the sound bites from those on the left that these people have blood on their hands and that someone else bears the true blame for this is absolutely ridiculous. 59 people died, and only one man is responsible for that. Now, but this didn't stop the fingers from being pointed almost immediately. Outraged that nothing changed after Columbine or Sandy Hook or Orlando. Outraged that the NRA could possibly be against new gun control laws. Now, honestly, I'm surprised they don't have a celebrity montage over a white background already. The only outrage they truly have is that the NRA exists. That so many Americans still cling, that's what they said, cling to their Bible and guns. Now, it's true. It does seem that we have more mass shooting incidents than ever before. I mean, hardly a year goes by without one or two. It makes it hard to believe that violent crime and gun violence particularly has been plummeting since the mid-90s. Inevitably, though, the media trips over themselves to convince you that we're living through the apocalypse. So for the sake of argument, let's presume that they're right and something must be done. Let's ignore the proposals that were before Congress. The pressure after this shooting effectively killed a suppressor bill. There was a bill before Congress to ease restrictions on suppressors, which are wholly different from silencers. It's not like the movies. And there was another bill on national reciprocity that was being into consideration, and that conversation is now off the table. So instead, we'll go from background checks, which I covered in a prior video that you can watch by hitting the link or checking out my gun control playlist. And we're going to take that all the way up to outright firearms confiscation. We're going to ban them, take them. So, expanded background checks. A proposal that the left loves to tout as a reasonable measure to save lives. What this would do is require background checks on all firearm purchases. I mean, who could possibly oppose that? But this wouldn't do anything. You see, the Brady campaign's own website offers conflicting information in regards to this. In one sentence, they claim that nearly 40% of all gun sales take place without a background check, either through private sale, online, or at gun shows. Did I mention I have a prior video about just that? But in the next sentence, the very next sentence, they ask, what can be done about the 22% of gun sales that take place without a background check? Now, it is hard to say for sure what the actual statistics are, but passing legislation to expand background checks would have absolutely no effect on gun sales, because there's no such thing as a gun show or an online loophole, because all of these transactions ultimately have to pass through a licensed gun dealer, which by existing law requires a background check be run. Now, the sticky part of the proposal is that they like to tack on a little rider to that. They often pair that with a national gun registry, requiring you to register all of your firearms with the state. And to say that gun owners are a little suspicious to have their information and what they own on a list owned by the federal government, well, that would kind of be an understatement. And rightfully so. After Sandy Hook, the Journal News released the names and addresses of all pistol permit holders in Westchester and Rockland County, New York. So I'm with them and being just a little apprehensive about a federal government that is proven to be less than scrupulous with data having that kind of information. Now, another popular proposal is in reinstating the assault weapons ban that was passed in 1994 under Bill Clinton. This was really the beginning of the Brady campaign coming to prominence. What this would do is ban all AR-15s, the so-called assault rifles, and their variants, as well as a slew of other AK-47 lookalikes and whatever scary-looking weapon of the time they decide to include. See, but there are so many problems with this approach, so we're going to take a look at three. First, politicians have no freaking clue what they're talking about. Magazines, clips, hundreds of rounds a second, well, everything that this guy says.
This is a ghost gun. This right here has ability with a .30 caliber clip to disperse with 30 bullets within half a second. 30 magazine clip in half a second.
Then there's the question of form versus function. You see, an AR-15 and similar rifles are semi-automatic rifles, which means one pull, one shot. Just like the non-scary rifle here. And this non-scary rifle. And this non-scary rifle. You see, they all work exactly the same. One for one. Thirdly, is it even the scourge that the media and the left say it is? Is it the killer that everyone wishes it was? Well, not according to the Huffington Post. While it has, of late, I'll admit, it seems like it's been used in most high-profile mass killings. This rifle accounts for only around 2% of gun deaths from 2016. Of all gun deaths, the vast majority of which are suicide, by the way, mostly involve handguns, also semi-automatic. So that's two of the more popular common sense proposals that would be ineffectual, to say the least. I mean, they would have almost zero effect on gun violence, while imposing a litany of new restrictions on gun owners who are, at least those who would actually be affected by these regulations, innocent, law-abiding citizens. So let's really dig down. Let's talk about what it is the left really, really wants. But only the most vehement among them will actually say it. Although it has been hinted at when they say, well, in Australia, or well, in England. They're talking about an outright gun ban. This is usually combined with talk that they would like to call it a voluntary buyback, but it's really not. You can't voluntarily force someone to sell something to you. So let's just call it what it is. You ban all guns and you confiscate them. How has this worked for these other two developed countries that they like to point out? Well, looking at the numbers, it hasn't exactly been the success they'd hoped for. While it is true, the United States has a higher homicide rate, and due to the amount of firearms owned by private citizens, the gun crime rate is also much higher. But is that all that matters? I mean, when you include other violent crimes such as assault and rape, England has a significantly higher violent crime rate, comparably speaking, to the U.S. I mean, the comparison isn't perfect. Because the Brits calculate violent crime differently than the FBI does. But if you were to adjust the calculations to be comparable using the FBI's techniques and the way that they analyze it on the numbers from England, the analysis would show that the U.S. has a crime rate of roughly just over 400 incidents per 100,000 residents. And gun-free jolly old England has roughly 775. That's nearly double. In Australia, nearly a decade after their gun ban, assaults had risen by 50%, sexual assault by 30%, and the Australian Bureau of Criminology admitted, after analyzing the changes that were so necessary, they determined that there was no correlation between gun control and the use of guns in violent crimes. The reason gun owners and the NRA, as much as the liberal Twitterverse hates them, push back with everything they have when a new push for common sense gun legislation is made, is because nothing ever proposed will actually help. None of the proposals will have a tangible effect on crime in this country and will only serve to tamp out the rights of law-abiding citizens. So until you have the support of this country to actually amend the Second Amendment, which won't be anytime soon, step away from the keyboard and the cameras. Go to a gun range and learn something about what you're talking about. Try enforcing the gun laws that we have. But mostly, go to the range. Learn about guns. You might learn a thing or two. To stay up to date on all the latest content and videos, be sure to click subscribe, and you can find me on Twitter @BradLangShow. Thanks for watching.